I blind bought a ton of Xerjoff fragrances. Today we're going to be rating about 6 more. Here's some codes to save you some cash on your next Middle Eastern niche or designer fragrances. What's going on, guys? My name is Neeb. Welcome back to AROMATIX. Today we're going to be doing exactly what I said in the intro, basically. We're going to be talking about Xerjoff fragrances that I blind bought, which was around, I would say, about 14 or so, along with my entire collection of Xerjoffs, basically. I bought every single one of these. Not a single one was gifted. And so we're going to keep it a buck as always, regardless of the facts. So today we're going to be talking about 6 in specific, and some of which are not really that popular. For a long time, I've been curious about a lot of Xerjoff fragrances in general. They have arguably some of the best presentations and a lot of hype and buzz behind the brand in itself. So I figured what better way to find out and try it myself. So a few fragrances I did end up getting decants versus full presentation. And how did I determine whether or not I did exactly that? Was depending on the notes, basically. So through my experience, I kind of just looked at a couple notes and decided, hey, this looks relatively interesting and this doesn't. So which ones do I want? Which ones do I regret? Let's go ahead and get started with the first fragrance on this list. And this is actually decent. This is called Kobe. Kobe was something different. As you can see, I went through pretty much the whole 10 ml bottle. The notes of this had some enticing notes, like at the top of orange, bergamot, labdanum. I also saw the petitgrain note and I was like, I don't know, I really don't like petitgrain, but some fragrances with petitgrain, depending on the dose, is actually pretty good, along with orange flower and neroli. And then there was a base of a lot of resins, basically ambergris, vanilla. Kobe opens up extremely familiar, but dries down to something else that's, I don't want to say extremely familiar, but also familiar. First off, the composition of this is actually pretty well put together because it almost 360s in its scent profile. It's been a long time since I've experienced a scent, that was a lot of S's, that did as much transitioning as this one did, for sure. It opened up like a very strong version of Neroli Portofino, basically. A lot of citruses, a lot of that neroli. I was like, wow, this is better than Neroli Portofino. How come people are not talking about this? Richer, more aromatic, the green undertone smells more naturalistic to the neroli. A lot of that intensive orange. I'm really digging this. As long as it doesn't go too metallic, this is actually really good. But it started to change. And I mean like night and day, not even. It was like country to country change, literally. Started off as something fresh, relatively like French inspired, thicker, a little bit thicker than that, into something that's just straight up Middle Eastern, like all just sweet myrrh. I was getting sweet myrrh, and I'd literally noticed at like hour 1.5, I was like, what did I wear today? I thought I didn't wear ivory root, which is what it ended up smelling like. And what ivory root smells like is a lot of sweet myrrh. So the opening, this is phenomenal, bro. Literally, I'm not even that crazy about Neroli Portofino, but what it started to dry down to is basically myrrh. And although it's got notes of like styrax, and vanilla and ambergris and some benzoin, ultimately that combination does come off a little bit darker. It smells kind of woody, ambery, sweetened, and slightly nutty as well, the whole sweet myrrh vibe. And that's notoriously known for the highest quality, some of the highest quality myrrh being in Yemen. So Kobe dries down to like sweet myrrh, mostly just sweet resins, basically, to be more correct per the actual notes. But I mean, these are notes that are in Fragrantica, and I mean, who knows? It is what it is. Sometimes they just put accords in. We're not going to get into that topic, but that's what it smells like ultimately. So it opens up with a beautiful dose or a beautiful style fragrance of Neroli Portofino and starts to dry down into like ivory root. And that's not a bad thing because ivory root is phenomenal. Love this stuff, but you have to enjoy Oriental resinous vanillic sweet fragrances. And that's pretty much it. One of the most transitional fragrances I have in my collection if I end up buying the full bottle. Do I think I'm gonna buy the full bottle? I don't know, man. I don't know. The opening is something I kept literally spraying this most of the day because I wanted to relive the opening. The dry down is just way too similar to other myrrh fragrances or resin fragrances that I have. I like it. I love the opening, but I'm not in love with the fragrance, unfortunately, honestly. It's a really good fragrance. It is a really good fragrance if you don't have any other style fragrances. It's actually a really good entry into resinous ambery fragrances because of the fact that it actually gets pretty close to that in the dry down. So other than that, I don't really have much more to say. Very different. It's not like this well-blended citrus amber fragrance. It's like citrus meets amber, but they never really meet. They just kind of stick just like that. Although they do have transitioning phases, I kind of overlook it, and I just focus solely on what it's doing in the opening with the freshness and the white florals, and then all of a sudden I notice it's amber. So it's a very shifting fragrance, and that's pretty much it with Kobe. Do I think I'm going to buy it? Honestly, probably not. I love the opening, but other than that, I was just kind of like, I've smelled this before. Not a bad fragrance. If you don't have a collection like mine, I think you'll really enjoy it. Worth a sample. At the very least, worth a sample is gonna be Kobe. Moving on to the next fragrance. This is a part of the JTC, so join the club. It's called Comandante. I don't know how I feel about this one either. So the opening of this has a very familiar scent profile and DNA. There's like tobacco, leather, vanilla, and fruity spicy notes, basically is what I get with this one. And it kind of smells very designer. I mean, it does smell very designer. It smells like the original Le Male, but modernized with like Armani Code Profumo touches, genuinely. And this is one where literally the reminds me of section on Fragrantica is like spot freaking on. I get a much more modern take on the whole Le Male DNA. I'm just extremely surprised that it's coming out of a bottle like this. I would not expect it. So even considering the facts, it's a good one. It's a good one. However, it's good for the first hour, because as it starts to dry down, it actually turns into like more of a mess. It kind of starts to fall off, and it does this thing where it's like, hey, you know me in the opening, and then it just like, where am I going? I don't really know. And you're like, well, where are you going now? And you don't really know. It's fruity, it's spicy, slightly leathery and vanillic, but it's not one, it's forgettable, basically. I don't really have anything to say about like dogging it. It's not one that I would personally like trash on. But I just don't know about this one, genuinely. Like I wore it and it was like, meh, like no. Like there are certain designers that I would personally get. The only thing that is saving this one is gonna be the presentation for sure. And yeah, that's about it. So do I regret buying it? Yeah, kinda, not gonna lie. This is one that I regret buying. I'm not disappointed that I have it, and it very well likely could get me compliments, genuinely, because it's very familiar. But if you're going into a brand like Xerjoff, are you looking for familiar? If you are, then this is a good one. If you're not, then this isn't a good one. So I know that ratings can be valuable to some people, but there's so many factors in ratings, man, that I try to stay away from it. But I'm gonna give you guys my honest personal rating. Please keep that in mind. There's so many things that factor into it, but we'll be here all day. But for me, I'd give this one about a 6, maybe a 6.5. And Kobe, I gave it like a solid 7.25. I'll give it like a 7.5 for Kobe. That's pretty much it, man. It's not a bad smelling fragrance, but the florals start to shine a little bit more, and it turns into like this floral, creamy leather, and just vanilla fragrance. So this is why I hate the Tarathi bottles. That's why. Photobombed. Wait, no, they wouldn't call it photobombed. It just made special appearance. Tarathi. Moral of the story, I'm not really crazy about it. I'm not really, running home about it or anything like that. And I got like a total longevity of about 7-8 hours. I honestly forgot I was wearing this fragrance for a long time, and it was just so bleh. That's pretty much it. They have a lot better offerings, especially if you're looking for more niche-esque. If you're gonna jump into the house, there is better than that. Now, if you're going in for the first time, then that might be a good one. Who knows? Up to you. That's literally how I feel about that fragrance. But anyways, moving on to the next one. This is called Shun Koin, also by the Join the Club series. I actually remember really enjoying this one, however, finding it to lean slightly more feminine as it started to reach the later mid. This has a lot of powdery notes. If you like powdery notes, sandalwood, orris, that creamy, buttery, vanillic style fragrance, you will like this. There's a cherry blossom in here as well that kind of gives it that fruity aspect, leaning more towards the feminine side of things, giving it a cosmetic overall feel, basically. Spring and fall time in a bottle, like early summer days. This is beautiful. It's a pretty ass fragrance, basically. So it's not necessarily too pretty. I wouldn't wear it. I wouldn't wear this personally. I tried to get myself to wear it, but it's a little too floral. It's like Musk Therapy meets a little bit more femininity, and Musk Therapy for me is like, okay, that's pushing the boundary. Any more than this, it would be a little bit too femme, and this does exactly that. Takes it. It does smell high quality as well too, but adds that cherry blossom and tea. The tea in this one is actually pretty prominent, and the tea cuts through the DNA, adding something that doesn't allow it to go too flat, and a little bit of an oriental edge from the olibanum. The tea does help this one lean slightly back towards the uniside of things, but it's still relatively feminine in my opinion. I think that a lot of women that don't like cosmetic or powdery will find that this one is kind of old lady-ish, just because of the facts that it is very powdery, and then it has a gummy nature, or like an Arabic gum nature. I should say resinous, because more people will know the ambers and resins than they will Arabic gum. But as it starts to dry down, it does get warmer and more vanillic, metallic and kind of that waxy vibe. Leaning this one a bit more mature, feminine, and still playful, flirty, but more mature at the same time, if that makes any sense. It's like a woman who's in her 30s trying to be flirty, basically. Smells really good, it smells high quality, but it can be a little bit too much in that sense of potentially getting cloying because of that thickness and the waxiness. Otherwise, scent profile is really good. I'm not gonna rate this one, it's too femme, it's not something that I could even live with. I know that on the tester strip it was pretty strong and it wasn't going anywhere, but that's about it. That's as far as I was able to go with this fragrance, just because of the fact that, like I said, way too femme, at least for me. Moving on to the next one, this is called Alexandria Oriental. Oriental is a more animalistic take on Alexandria 2. It's as simple as that. So what ends up happening with Alexandria 3 is something I don't enjoy. They start to go more towards the amber side of things, less on the oud. It gets more animalistic. I don't get as much of those spices. All of those, you know, more mass appealing factors are kind of toned down with Alexandria 3. You start getting more of that Cambodian and barnyardy style oud, and I don't really enjoy that blend. There are a few Xerjoff fragrances that actually uses Cambodian oud, or the oud that they use, I'm not really that crazy about. So this one kind of goes in that territory. It's that same Xerjoff oud that they use across the boards with a lot of their fragrances, not all, and it ruins it for me, genuinely. The ambers and that barnyard, it just does not work. This, however, stays true and closer to the original scent profile, but focuses a little bit more on the oud in itself and not just the ambers. The oud in this one is not necessarily as barnyardy, and for that reason, I could still enjoy and sense some of that original DNA. It definitely takes things more oriental, adding more of a smoke. You still get that spiced cinnamon, but definitely more leveled off. It is a more animalistic, truer take on Alexandria 2 than Alexandria 3 is to the whole DNA. I think Alexandria 2 is still the best one, and Oriental would be like my number 2 pick, basically. And that's about it. I haven't worn it yet, but I do plan on fully rocking this one to see if that oud still wears pretty well and pretty good during the later dry down. So we'll discover on that one. For now, I'll say that this one, if Alexandria 2 is like a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10, this would be like a 7.5 to an 8 tops for now. I'll say let's give it a solid 8. You do have to like, animalistic oud, basically. Next one is called Red Hubba. It comes in this red velvet bottle, and I just really didn't like this fragrance, man. It's got an animalistic take on more of this dry and woody fragrance with a lot of this gaiac wood, I believe, and some papyrus in the dry down. It smells dated. Oh, Lord, no. It's actually kind of headache-inducing for me. It's got cashmere, musk, a lot of labdanum. It comes off like this leathery, ambery, piney, animalic fragrance. And at the top, there's like promising notes of cardamom, cinnamon. I was thinking about buying this one actually, with a hefty dose of incense and patchouli, orris. There is a lot of jasmine in this one too, giving it this dated, floral, ambery, leathery vibe basically. And red hubba, or hubba means like kiss, at least in Arabic, you know. Kind of gives me this red velvety, ambery vibe, but not for me whatsoever. It actually smells like old, a little bit mature woman. Just no, not for me, man. So I'm not even gonna give it a rating. This is thankfully not one that I bought, and it's not one that I'm going to buy either. Last one, ending things on a decent note, is Udin Overdose. The initial impression with this fragrance actually really good. Udin was a pretty enjoyable wear for me, and Neo was something that was relatively surprising. I was not expecting that. So with Udin, this is something that reminded me a lot of like this Chanel Allure Homme Edition Blanche at a more complex level and higher end. It definitely has like this foamy cream style vibe that relates or places me in the vibe of other barbershoppy fragrances. Although not really having like lavender and oak moss, which is what barbershoppy fragrances are known for, it does give you this aromatic fougere vibe, which basically smells, gentlemen, like you're at the barbershop and you have shaving cream. It's the shaving cream smell that uses lavender typically and oak moss, and that's why people say barbershop. So it has that DNA, but a lot better than that. It gives it this musky nature, lemony, fresh, a little bit of sweetness, and I think it might have something of tobacco blossom, some citruses, and ginger. Smells really good. It's not just foamy, it has other crisp and very evident style zinginess coming from those citruses, and this one intensifies that zinginess and intensifies also the aromatic quality of it. So that aromatic spice, the fresh spice that's coming from that tobacco blossom, is enhanced a little bit more so in this one. So you get something that really packs a punch. It's a lot more intensive and seemingly going to be a stronger version of Udin. Udin left me craving a little bit more with the performance, about 6.5 hours, 6 hours. I would still say that that this is really good and a more mature and full-bodied, higher quality style of Allure Homme Edition Blanche. But Udin, the opening, just smells much stronger. I'm actually looking forward to rocking this one a lot, and I've been in between making each of these videos wearing these fragrances as well, as you will see in a lot of my short content. If you're not already following me, I encourage you to follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and also my weekly gem fragrance videos as well. You'll see these fragrances pop in there if it's one that I have worn or enjoyed wearing, basically. So Udin Overdose, one of the ones that I will be rocking soon. Zingy Fresh Citrus, also having that shaving cream style DNA, the musky creamy vanilla, with a lot more than just that, having the tobacco blossom, giving it this aromatic, crisp style of herbal nuance, basically. Not at all smells like tobacco, although it has tobacco blossom, and smells a lot better than that would sound. A great fragrance that does have, you know, modern aspects with an old school fougere vibe. Great one, nevertheless. If you like fragrances like Allure Homme Edition Blanche, or even Versace the Dreamer, then you'll probably enjoy these style DNAs. This is done at like the highest quality for sure. Although I have high hopes for this one, stay tuned, make sure to subscribe, because I'm gonna be rocking this bad boy and seeing exactly how well it performs. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Make sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button. Until the next one, peace.